My name is Estelle Monroe. I'm 33 years old, and until 8 months ago, I believed that if you built your life carefully enough, nothing really collapsed without warning. Not overnight. Not without signs. I work as a commercial electrician in Phoenix. My days start early, before the sun fully rises, and end long after the heat has settled into the pavement. Job sites, wiring panels, running conduit through unfinished buildings. It's not glamorous, but it's honest, structured, predictable. I like predictable. I rent a 2-bedroom townhouse about 15 minutes from downtown. It's quiet, clean, paid on time, mine. At least, it felt like mine. My boyfriend, Marcus Hale, is 29. Charismatic in that effortless way that makes people lean in when he talks. He works in marketing for a boutique agency. Presentation is everything to him. How things look, how things feel, and how people perceive him. We'd been together just under 3 years. We didn't officially live together, but he stayed over 5 or 6 nights a week. His clothes filled half my closet. His cologne lingered in my sheets. His presence settled into my life so gradually I never questioned it. From the outside, we probably looked solid. We traveled twice a year, hosted friends for game nights, had a Sunday breakfast spot where the servers already knew our order. There wasn't constant fighting. There also wasn't much respect. I just didn't fully admit that to myself until the end. Marcus had a sharp personality, confident, quick with sarcasm. Always the loudest voice in the room, not because he forced it, but because people let him be. At first, I liked that. I'm quieter, more reserved. He filled space I didn't feel the need to. But over time, that sharpness started turning on me. It began small. Little comments in front of his friends. You dress like someone's mom, Estelle. Electricians peak early, right? If I reacted, he'd roll his eyes, tell me I was too sensitive. If I stayed quiet, he'd smirk like he'd won something. And somehow, I kept letting it slide. About 4 months before everything broke, he stopped being subtle. He started comparing me to other women. A woman at his gym who owned a condo. A coworker who drove a Tesla. A friend of a friend who had just launched a startup. You could do more if you wanted to, he'd say casually. You're just comfortable. Comfortable. The way he said it, it sounded like failure. The night everything snapped didn't feel dramatic at first. We were at a bar downtown with 2 of his friends. I'd just come off a 12-hour shift. My hands still smelled faintly like metal and insulation, but I showed up anyway, because he said it mattered. At some point, the conversation drifted to dating standards. One of his friends laughed about how hard it is to find a decent partner. Marcus leaned back in his chair, swirling his drink, and said casually, you just have to train them. They laughed. I didn't. I looked at him, kept my voice even, and said, I'm not a project, Marcus. He raised an eyebrow like I'd interrupted something trivial. I just want basic respect, I added, especially in public. He stared at me for a second. Then he took a slow sip of his drink and said, I could replace you in a day. Silence. His friends went quiet immediately. I felt it, the shift, like the air had changed temperature. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't insult him back. I just looked at him and said, go ahead and try. He smirked, like I'd just made things interesting. See, that's what I mean, he said. Ego. You think I can't? This isn't about whether you can, I said calmly. It's about how you're talking to me. He waved a hand already bored. God, Estelle, why are you making this such a big deal? It was a joke. It wasn't. He'd said versions of that before. If you ever messed up, I wouldn't even blink. Men line up for women like me. I don't need you. I choose you. That night, though, it wasn't teasing. It felt like a test. And he expected me to fold, like I always had. I stood up slowly, pulled cash from my wallet, and placed it on the table. I'm heading home. He rolled his eyes. Are you seriously leaving? Yes. His friends watched like it was entertainment. Marcus leaned back in his chair and said, loud enough for them to hear, she'll cool off, she always does. That was the moment it clicked. He didn't think I was capable of leaving. Not really. When I got home, I didn't pace. Didn't overthink. I opened the closet and pulled his suitcase down from the top shelf. And I started packing. I folded his clothes neatly. All of them. The shirts in my drawers, the hoodies over the chair, the jeans in the laundry basket, the expensive sneakers he kept by my door like my townhouse had become his storage unit. Then I went into the bathroom. His razor, his hair products, his cologne, the face wash he once joked cost more than anything I used on myself. I packed it all. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Marcus, are you done being dramatic? I stared at the message for a moment, then took a picture of the packed suitcase beside the front door and sent it. He called immediately. I didn't answer. Then again, I let it ring. His next message came fast. Marcus, if you think you're teaching me a lesson, you're not. I could download an app and have someone new by tomorrow. I typed back one sentence. Then you won't miss me. For almost 10 minutes, nothing. Then, Marcus, wow. Around 1 in the morning, he showed up at my place. He wasn't crying. He wasn't sorry. He was irritated. Open the door, Estelle. I opened it because I wanted it finished in person. He stepped inside like nothing had changed. His eyes moved to the suitcase. You're really doing this over one comment? No, I said. I'm doing this over 3 years of them. For the first time that night, uncertainty crossed his face. Only slightly. Then he crossed his arms and leaned against my kitchen counter, like we were arguing about dinner plans. 3 years of what, exactly? Of you talking to me like I'm optional, I said. Like I'm lucky you tolerate me. Like I'm one bad day away from being replaced. He gave a short laugh. You are optional, Estelle. Everyone is. That was the first honest thing he'd said all night. I nodded. You're right. Everyone is optional, including me choosing to stay. His expression changed then. Not regret. Calculation. So what, you want me to beg? No, I want you to mean it if you stay. He shook his head. This is insane. Couples fight. I said one thing. You said you could replace me in a day. Because I could. There it was again. Not defensive. Not emotional. Just a fact in his mind. I told him calmly, then go find someone more aligned with your standards. I'm not competing for basic respect in my own relationship. He stared at me, waiting for me to crack. I didn't. His tone sharpened. You're overreacting. You're tired. Tomorrow you'll feel stupid. Maybe, I said, but I won't feel disrespected. He grabbed the suitcase handle and dragged it toward the door harder than necessary. Fine, be dramatic. I stepped aside and opened the door. He paused at the threshold. You really think you're going to find better? I didn't answer that. I only said, I'd rather be alone than auditioning. That hit. I saw it. His jaw tightened, but he walked out without another word. I closed the door. Locked it. And for the first time in almost 3 years, my house was actually quiet. The next morning, I expected anger. Instead, I got performance. At 9, Marcus posted an Instagram story from brunch. Smiling. Rooftop table. 2 women I didn't know sitting beside him. The caption said, Life moves fast. By noon, mutual friends started texting. Did you and Marcus break up? Everything okay? He said you flipped out over nothing. I didn't defend myself. I just answered, we decided to go separate ways. That evening, Marcus texted again. Hope you enjoy your empty house. I looked around my living room. Clean. Calm. Exactly how I left it. I replied once. I already do. That was 8 months ago. His most recent message came last night at 11:47 p.m. I was wrong. Please talk to me. And the timing of that message is what makes everything more complicated than it looks. Because the reason his message matters isn't that I still miss him. It's because of what happened in the 8 months after I walked out of that bar and packed his things. For the first 2 weeks, Marcus leaned hard into the replace you in a day narrative. New profile pictures. New women and stories. Gym selfies with captions about leveling up. Mutual friends fed me updates whether I asked or not. 3 weeks after we split, he brought a woman to a friend's birthday and introduced her as someone who actually understands ambition. That got back to me. I didn't react publicly. No cryptic quotes, no revenge dates, no posts about healing. I just kept going to work, kept paying my bills, kept waking up early, kept living in a house that finally felt like mine again. About a month in, I heard through a coworker whose cousin knew him that Marcus had already cycled through 2 women. The first stopped replying after a few dates. The second lasted maybe 3 weeks. Then he started reaching for me indirectly, liking old photos, reacting to my stories with fire emojis, sending memes that referenced inside jokes from when we were together. I didn't respond. At the 3-month mark, he texted something more direct. Are you really never going to talk to me again? I replied once. You said you could replace me in a day. I'm giving you space to prove it. He didn't like that. His answer came immediately. You're being petty. I didn't answer. Around month 4, his posts got quieter. Fewer group shots. More vague captions about growth, clarity, and fake people. A mutual friend mentioned he'd been complaining that dating was exhausting and that women were insecure. That word stood out to me. Insecure. It's funny how asking for respect becomes insecurity when someone doesn't want to admit they were cruel. Around month 6, I ran into him at the grocery store. I kept it polite. Hi, hope you're well. He looked different. Not bad. Just less polished somehow. Like the confidence he used to weaponize had dulled around the edges. You look good, he said. Thanks. That was it. I paid for my groceries and left, which brings me to last night. I was on my couch after work, half watching something I wasn't really following, when my phone buzzed. I was wrong. Please talk to me. No emoji. No sarcasm, no passive-aggressive edge. Just that. I didn't reply. 20 minutes later, another message came. I thought I could replace you. I can't. I read it once. Then again, 8 months ago, he had been certain he could swap me out in 24 hours. Now he was admitting he couldn't. I didn't ask what changed. I didn't ask how many women it took for him to figure that out. I opened his contact info, hit block, and placed my phone face down on the table. No speech. No closure conversation. No victory lap. Just silence. You'd think that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The first sign came the next morning. I woke up to 3 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. No voicemail. Just silence sitting there on my screen, like something unfinished. 10 minutes later, a text from that same number. Can you please just hear me out? It didn't take much effort to figure out who it was. I blocked the number. By lunchtime, a mutual friend texted me. Hey, Marcus is kind of spiraling. Did you block him? Yes. The reply came almost instantly. He says you're being cruel, that he admitted he was wrong, and you won't even have a conversation. Cruel. That word again. When he said he could replace me in a day, that was confidence. When I walked away, that was dramatic. And now, when I refused to engage 8 months later, that was cruelty. I didn't argue. I just said, I'm not reopening something that's already closed. Apparently, that didn't sit well. That night, I got a message on Instagram from one of his close friends. You could at least give him closure. Closure. It's always the person who did the damage asking for that. I didn't respond. Over the next week, the attempts escalated. A LinkedIn connection request. An email sent to an old personal account I barely used. A Venmo request for $1 with the note, "Can we talk?" That one almost made me laugh. Almost. But then something shifted. 2 days later, I ran into him again. Same grocery store? This time it wasn't accidental. He walked straight toward me like he had been waiting. You blocked me. Yes. His eyes flashed. Not hurt. Anger. I said I was wrong. What more do you want? Nothing. You don't get to just erase me. I kept my voice even. I'm not erasing you. I'm removing myself. He stepped closer. People nearby started glancing over. You think this makes you strong? No, I said. It makes me done. His jaw tightened. For a second, I thought he might raise his voice, make a scene, but he didn't. He leaned in slightly and said, low enough that only I could hear, "You're going to regret this." There was no emotion in it, no desperation, just calculation. And that was what stayed with me. Because regret doesn't usually sound like that. After that encounter, I assumed that would be his last attempt. I was wrong. 3 days later, my landlord called me. Not about rent, not about noise. About a man who had come by asking if I was home. He hadn't caused a scene, just said he forgot something important and needed to speak with me. My landlord told him he couldn't give out tenant information. Suggested he contact me directly, which he couldn't, because he was blocked. That bothered me more than anything else. Running into someone at a grocery store is coincidence. Showing up at their home and asking around, that's intention. That night, I checked all my social media settings. Private, no tagged locations, no public stories. Not that I posted much anyway. Still, I didn't like the feeling of being watched. The next day, another unknown number. You don't have to like me. Just talk to me once. Blocked. 5 minutes later, a different number. You owe me that. Blocked. That's when something clicked. This wasn't about love. It wasn't about missing me. It was about control. When Marcus said he could replace me in a day, he believed it. Because he believed he always had options. Attention when he wanted it. Validation when he needed it. And for a long time, he did. When I left, he thought I'd come back. When I didn't, he thought I'd at least keep responding. When I stopped responding, he assumed I'd still care enough to argue. But blocking him? That took away his audience. And I don't think he knew how to exist without one. A mutual friend reached out again that night. He's not doing great. He says he misjudged you. I asked, what changed? There was a pause before the reply. The last woman he dated seriously broke up with him. Said he kept comparing her to someone else. Said nothing she did was ever enough. I didn't ask who that someone else was. I didn't need to. But here's the part that stayed with me. 8 months ago, he was certain I was replaceable. Now he was showing up at my home, calling from burner numbers, asking people to convince me to talk to him. Not saying he missed me, not saying he loved me, just he was wrong. And I didn't know if that was remorse or just ego damage. Because when he told me in the grocery store that I'd regret this, it didn't sound like heartbreak. It sounded like a warning. And that's when I started to question something I hadn't before. Not whether I'd made the right decision, but what he might do next to get a reaction. 2 nights after he told me I would regret this, I found out what he meant. It started small. A text from a coworker I barely spoke to outside of job sites. Hey, random question. Are you and Marcus back together? No. Why? He sent a screenshot. It was Marcus's Instagram story. Black background, white text. Some women can't handle strong men. When they realize they lost you, they block you and pretend they never cared. He didn't tag me directly, but it was close enough that anyone who knew us knew. That alone didn't bother me. What did was the next story, posted an hour later. Funny how some people forget who helped them when they were getting started. That's when I had to sit down. Because now it wasn't just noise. It was narrative. For context, when Marcus and I first started dating, he was barely covering rent. I paid for most dinners, covered trips, helped when his car broke down. Not because he asked. Because that's what you do when you're building something with someone. But I never paid his bills. Not once. I've always handled my own life. The implication he was making? That I owed my stability to him. It wasn't just false. It was intentional. I didn't respond publicly. Didn't comment. Didn't message him from a burner account. I did something simpler. I picked up my work phone, one he didn't have blocked yet, and sent one message. If you continue implying things about me publicly, I will respond with receipts. No insults. No emotion. Just that. 5 minutes later, the stories were gone. That's when I understood something clearly. This wasn't about getting me back. It was about controlling how the story ended. For 3 years, Marcus had shaped the narrative. He was the confident one, the charming one, and I was the quiet one who absorbed it. When I left, he lost that version of me. When I blocked him, he lost access. When I refused to engage, he lost control. And now he was trying to force a reaction any way he could. That night, I sat on my couch longer than usual, not because I missed him, but because I finally saw the pattern without emotion clouding it. This wasn't new behavior. It was just louder now. The next morning, something else happened. I noticed he had started liking photos of women I followed. Random ones. Women I'd never even spoken to. No comments. Just likes. Subtle, but deliberate. Like he wanted them to know he existed. Like he wanted me to see it. That wasn't regret. That was territory marking. And that's when I realized this wasn't over for him. Not in the way I thought. That afternoon, I got an email. Unknown address. Subject line. I'm done fighting. I almost deleted it without opening it. Almost. Curiosity won. It was him. No sarcasm. No ego. No passive-aggressive tone. Just paragraphs. He wrote that he had spent the last 8 months trying to prove something to himself. That he thought having options meant having power. That when I left without begging, it rattled him more than he expected. He admitted he kept dating to avoid feeling rejected. Said every woman he met felt temporary. That he compared them to me, even when he didn't want to. Then there was one line that stayed with me. I didn't realize respect mattered to you more than being needed. I stared at that sentence for a long time because it explained everything. He thought I stayed because I needed him. Because I was comfortable. Because I didn't think I could do better. What he never understood was that I stayed because I chose to, and the moment respect disappeared, so did that choice. The email ended simply. I don't want to replace you anymore. I just want a chance to fix it. 8 months ago, that might have meant something. Now, it just felt late. I didn't reply. I forwarded the email into a folder and closed my laptop. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't answer. Voicemail notification. I listened. His voice. Not sharp. Not arrogant. Just tired. I know you blocked me for a reason. I deserve that. But please don't reduce what we had to a lesson. It was real for me. I was arrogant. I see that now. That was the first time I'd ever heard him describe himself that way. For a split second, something in me softened. Then I remembered the bar, the smirk, the certainty in his voice when he said he could replace me in a day. Regret doesn't erase character. It reveals it. Later that night, another message came. Not from him, from a mutual friend. He's in therapy now. I didn't respond. I didn't know if that was true. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. But it added something I hadn't expected. Because now the question wasn't whether he regretted it. It was whether I believed the version of him that came after losing me. And whether growth that starts from ego damage is actually growth at all. For about a week after that, things went quiet. No calls. No new numbers. No indirect messages through friends. Just silence. But it felt different this time. Not tense. Not like something was waiting to happen. Just still. I almost believed it was over. Then I got invited to a housewarming party. Small group, mutual friends, nothing dramatic. I almost didn't go. But I've been making a conscious effort not to shrink my world because of him. So I went. Brought a bottle of wine. Kept it casual. Didn't think twice. Until I saw him. Marcus. No warning. No heads up. Just there. For a brief second, he froze when he saw me. Then he walked over like we were two people who just needed to clear the air. Can we talk outside? No. Not cold. Not emotional. Just firm. His jaw tightened, but he didn't push. Instead, he leaned in slightly and said, low enough that only I could hear, "You really don't care at all anymore?" That question was different. No ego. No sarcasm. Just searching, I answered honestly. I cared enough to leave. He blinked. Once. Twice. Then looked away first. For the rest of the night, he stayed nearby. Not clinging. Not making a scene. Just orbiting. Watching who I spoke to. Noticing when I laughed. At one point, I was talking to a woman named Claire. Just a casual conversation about travel. Nothing more. Marcus walked past us and said, just loud enough, "Be careful. She blocks people when she gets bored." Claire looked confused. I didn't react. Didn't correct him. Didn't engage. Because I understood what that was. Not anger. Not even jealousy. Just another attempt to provoke a reaction. Later, the host pulled me aside. "He's been asking about you all week. He thought if he showed up tonight, you'd finally talk to him." That's when it clicked completely. This wasn't about reconciliation. It was about closure on his terms. He wanted a conversation where he could feel chosen again, where I would acknowledge his growth, where he could walk away believing he hadn't really lost. And I wasn't going to give him that. Because the only reason he wanted to fix it now was because I didn't beg when he dared me to leave. When the party ended, I walked toward my car. He followed. "Last chance," he said quietly. "For what?" "For us." I shook my head. "There is no us, Marcus." He exhaled slowly. "You don't even know who I am anymore." I looked at him for a long second. "I know exactly who you are." And that was the truth. Not the version he was trying to become. Not the version he was presenting now. But the one who sat across from me in that bar and told me I was replaceable. That version doesn't disappear. It just learns how to speak differently. I got into my car. Left. And this time, he didn't follow. The next morning, something new happened. An email. Not from him. From his therapist. A licensed professional. Full name, practice details, everything real. She wrote that Marcus was working through patterns of control, validation, and insecurity. That part of his process involved making amends with people he had hurt. And she asked if I would be open to a mediated closure session. Not reconciliation. Closure. That word again. I sat there staring at the screen for a long time. 8 months ago, he said he could replace me in a day. 6 months ago, he was posting about leveling up. 4 months ago, I was insecure. 2 weeks ago, I would regret this. And now, he was in therapy, asking for structured closure. I believe people can grow. I really do. But I also believe something else. Growth doesn't obligate the people you hurt to participate in your redemption. I didn't answer right away. I went to work, focused on something real, tangible, a panel that needed wiring, a system that made sense. At lunch, I wrote a response. Short, clear. I appreciate the outreach. I'm glad he's doing the work. I don't wish him harm, but I'm not interested in a session, mediated or otherwise. I've moved on. Before I hit send, I asked myself one question. Was I declining because I was bitter? No, I was declining because the boundary I set 8 months ago still mattered. He didn't lose me because of one comment. He lost me because he believed I was replaceable. And once someone truly believes that about you, you can't unhear it. I sent the email. An hour later, a final message came back through the therapist. He understands. No more calls. No more numbers. No more grocery store confrontations. Just quiet. It's been 2 weeks since then. And the silence feels different now. Not heavy. Not unfinished. Just peaceful. So here's the question I've been sitting with. Was blocking him the right move? Part of me wonders if I should have heard him out. But a bigger part of me knows this. The moment he said he could replace me in a day, he showed me exactly how he valued me. And I chose not to compete for a place in my own life. 8 months later, I still think that was the right decision.